This is not my first choice for headgear, but we have these little flies out here in the desert after a rain, and they're very annoying. Sanitizing economic exploitation. No area of human intellectual pursuit has developed a more sanitizing language than economics. Contained within bland terms such as production of capital are the starvations and outright murders of millions. The very centerpiece term of modern economics, growth, swings like a grim reaper's scythe through the species of life, thousands, millions falling forever lost from the earth, from the universe, in the 2%, 4%, 6% growth figures of national statistics. You would think to hear capital formation, savings and investment, productivity, material well-being, market economy, of the clean, shiny lines of a new automobile or morning light streaming through the windows of a spotless modern kitchen. But also contained in those words are lung-sick miners dying at 30, malnourished, stunted bodies of child laborers, families torn apart by the dictates of money economy, every bit as separated as they would be by the dictates of a slave owner. The words don't make it happen, we make it happen. But the words set the tone and cushion us from the realities. The words seem to say that all is right and well and finally necessary. We need not concern ourselves with the messy details. Capital formation is the correct understanding. The rest is medical or political or some other more janitorial concern. It is as though, since we have the concepts and the definitions, all is right now. We need go no further to discover some other way of doing business. Obscenely wealthy individuals and obscenely wealthy nations can rest comfortably in the protection of economic incentives, mechanisms of growth, and the certainty of hard economic realities. Doctors did surgery without anesthesia and struggled against its employment. The same with antiseptics. Economics has its theoretical side, but like medicine is also applied as an art. Economists are well pleased with themselves for understanding why the pain of inequity is necessary, rather than looking for methods to reduce inequity, reduce pain, and heal long-standing wounds. Explanations which flatter and absolve wealthy individuals and nations. Economic dislocations will continue to happen, but it is time to begin looking for how these changes can occur with dignity for all the participants. A practical, salutary economics rather than an economics which provides intellectual cover for what has been and continues to be a remarkably brutal assault of human on human and human on the rest of the living and mineral world. Having viable alternatives to forcing the savings for capitalization from the poor will not guarantee that amoral, greedy people will use them. But such alternatives would create great pressure for their use were they generally understood. A beginning step would be to challenge the central premise of present market economics, that is, that humans are greedy. Some humans are greedy. Most are not. A simple look around will prove that. And it is not that every human that doesn't covet wealth is lazy or otherwise infirm. The vast majority strike some reasonable balance. What humans are is self-interested, but self-interest is not synonymous with money interest or greed. Self-interest is synonymous with what a person understands as best for them. And this goes way beyond the simple accumulations of material advantage. We need to replace the assumption of greed with the recognition that we have the responsibility and the right to discipline the greed of those of us who are truly greedy and who express their self-interest to the disservice of us all. I'm going to repeat that. We have the responsibility and the right to discipline the greed of those few of us who are truly greedy and who express their self-interest to the disservice of us all. We are simply not required to supply an environment in which one small group of people's narrow acquisitiveness has precedence over the broad range of human needs and concerns, which includes a healthy, self-sustaining biosphere. But this is exactly what we have allowed. Robert Heilbrunner, in his book, The Making of Economic Society, copyright 1962, wrote that if the workers of the Industrial Revolution in England had been paid twice as much per week, they still would have lived in poverty, and that it was necessary for the workers to supply by their reduced wages the savings which were used in the conversion of labor to capital. You see how sterile and clean that sounds. What he does not tell us is that the wealthy could also have lived in relative luxury. However, still, a few pages earlier, he wrote that at one point the average man's wage was 8 shillings a week and the cost of living was 14 shillings a week. And that it was this difference that sent women at about 4 shillings a week and children 1 or 2 shillings into the factories. While a man receiving 16 shillings a week would not have raised a family out of poverty, the people might have at least lived with greater dignity. And the Industrial Revolution could have steamed on, supplied with savings for capital formation from the somewhat less impoverished worker and the somewhat less wealthy industrialist. But even such mild equity was not in the public mind, a public mind still awash in the habits of thought from feudal times. And it was the absence of generally accepted principles of even minimal equity that allowed the wealth of nations to be extracted almost completely from the labor of impoverished people. People whose only choices were to work in the conditions and for the pay offered, or to die. It is time for another leap forward or backward in human thought. We have gone beyond feudal social organization and beyond feudal manufacturing technologies, and it is now time to go beyond feudal thought in economics to a salutary economics that has as its goal discovering ways to increase the equity and dignity in transactions of exchange, rather than only explaining how it is that inequity is not theft, and in what way impoverishment is really a virtue.